Hello everybody, and a very, very warm welcome to Monza for the second race, the 7th round of the 2012 International GT Open, live from the legendary circuit. We're just north of Milan and the sun is beating down. It's an absolutely beautiful day here and it is perfect conditions to enjoy the action from the International GT Open as we move towards the closing stages of the season. Just 3 races to go, including today's encounter. Talking you through it, it's myself, Ben Evans, alongside me, the sports car and GT racer, Duncan Tappy. And Duncan, there's a huge crowd here at Monza today, and this is what they're all here for, the excitement of the International GT Open. We had a brilliant first race of the weekend yesterday in changeable weather. Today, the sun is out, and I'm sure the excitement is going to be exactly as we had.
Yeah, I mean, yesterday provided a lot of entertainment, some good driving and a few mistakes out there to make it even more so exciting. And today's going to be different altogether. We've got the sun out, a few different cars in different positions. I think it's going to be pretty exciting, and I can't wait to see it get underway.
Well, today is the 50-minute race, which is the shorter race of the weekend, but they all must still make their mandatory pit stop between the 20 and 30-minute mark in the race. And starting in pole position is yesterday's race winner, Patrick Pilet, in the IMSA Performance Macbook Porsche that he shares with Ramon Narak. It's an all-Porsche front row, though, because second on the grid are the championship leaders, Marco Holzer and Nick Tandy. They took the championship lead in the most dramatic of circumstances yesterday when they overtook Federico Leo in the latter stage of the race. So Marco, there he is, sitting in the Manthey Racing Porsche, getting ready for the start. Very focused, Marco. Still got time for a quick wave to the camera. 2 classes, of course, in the International GT Open. If you've not seen it before, there is the Super GT class, which both the cars on the front row of the grid run in. That is, broadly speaking, to FIA GT2 specifications, although the GT Open regulations allow some freedom and give the teams a bit more scope to develop their cars. And then we've also got the GTS class, which is, again, for cars that are broadly speaking GT3 cars, but with some room in the regulations for development and tweaks. Third on the grid then is Matteo Malicelli and Alvaro Barber in the Valois Racing Aston Martin. They currently lie third in the championship standings, but a difficult race for them yesterday has seen them maybe drop a little bit away for the fight for the championship lead, but the straight line speed of the Aston Martin is surely going to be a factor in the sunshine today. The same very much goes for Raffaele Gianmaria. He and Miguel Ramos, the pilots of the V8 Racing Corvette. That car is rolling thunder. It's unmistakable when it's out on track, and Gianmaria and Ramos have been going very, very well with that car over the past couple of rounds of the season. Again, many people in the paddock overnight saying they think that car stands a very good opportunity of claiming victory. Certainly another car that you'd look for the victory is the car that lines up 5th on the grid. This one is Federico Leo who starts it, and he shares that with the former Minardi Formula 1 driver Jimmy Bruni. Bruni yesterday was in imperious form. Federico Leo struggled a little bit during his stint, but he eventually brought the car home in 4th, and he was very confident this morning. He's got a lot of guests here at Monza this weekend, and saw him briefly earlier on. He was all smiles, and so he will be looking to put together a good performance today. If you've not seen the International GT Open before, I should explain that the way the performance is equalised is to do with additional time in the pit stop, because all of the cars have a mandatory minimum pit stop time, and then they gain additional time depending on whether they finish on the podium or not. But let's have a look at the starting grid before we go into that in a bit more detail, with Patrick Pilet and Marco Holzer on the front row, Matteo Malicelli and Raffaele Gianmaria row 2, Federico Leo and Juan Manuel Lopez and all Ferrari 458 row 3, Michael Brosnitsky and then Stefano Gattuso, the GTS class pole sitter, on row 4. Marco Mappelli had lots of adventures yesterday in the Auto Orlando Sport Porsche. He starts in 9th with Andrea Rizzoli in 10th, Diedrich Schüthoff and Alexander Talkanitsa. And then a very welcome newcomers championship, the former Arrows Formula 1 driver Enrique Benaldi starts 14th in the AF Course Ferrari 458. Klaus Hommel's McLaren is well up on what is a huge grid. Brilliant to see the Monte Carlo car of Fulvio Bellabio there, 24th on the grid. Bellabio, driver with one of the most diverse careers of any of the competitors in this large field. Then as the cars head off on the formation lap, as ever, it's a rolling start in the International GT Open, so they're just working around behind the pace car and form up side by side, get ready for the off. It's a good opportunity, Duncan. You've raced here in GT cars around Monza to take a look at this unique circuit and the challenges it poses to the drivers.
Yeah, Monza is really a place steeped with history, and it's a pleasure to drive. It really is, because you've got the mixture of really gutsy, fast corners with a little, and then straight after that you've got some technical slow-speed chicanes where you can set up the car in front for a potential overtaking manoeuvre, and it always creates great racing around here, and most drivers love it. You know, it's well up there with all our favourites, you know, like Spa or Nürburgring, all the really historic places, and it's a reason why it's still around, because it's a great place to drive.
Celebrating its 90th year this year, Monza, and if you didn't join us for yesterday's race, well, it was held in the most difficult of conditions. It started on a damp track, then at the mid-race pit stops, the drivers all made the switch to slicks, which took some time to get up to temperature. I was talking to Marco Holz this morning, and he was saying that it took 5 or 6 laps to get heat into those tyres, and even then it was very precarious. And then with 5 minutes to go, the rain came down, and it came down very heavily, very suddenly, and Patrick Pilet emerged from it all to take he and Ramon Narac's first win of the season. Fortunately, a run of slightly indifferent results prior to that had left them out of the championship contention. The Porsches then completing row one on the grid, which we wouldn't have expected in terms of the raw lap time pace around this circuit. It was the Ferraris, it was the Aston Martin, it was the Corvettes that were going so well in dry testing, but qualifying for this race yesterday was held again during a torrential downpour, and the traction of the Porsches is what gave them the front row. The challenge, though, Duncan, is going to be whether or not Patrick Pilet and Marco Holzer can keep the rest of the pack behind them in these early stages.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a little bit different. They had a brief encounter with dry running yesterday during the race, but there's nothing quite like they're at now. So it's going to be interesting to see what car comes out on top. I think one to look out for is Klaas Hummel and Adam Christodoulou in the McLaren. I think it's obviously bone dry now, and the car had a little bit of an issue yesterday with an exhaust sensor problem, which had a bit of an issue, and the car stopped because of that. So it will be interesting to see what they can bring it back up to today, so keep a look out for them.
That's a good spot for that McLaren, certainly one of the contenders for GTS class victory, as the cars then form up side by side and get ready for this rolling start. They head around the legendary Parabolica corner, so it's the red, white and blue IMSA Performance Macbeth Porsche of Patrick Pilet to the inside of the front row, the bright green and yellow Manthey Racing Porsche of Marco to the outside, then the all-black Valois Racing Aston Martin, and the black Chevrolet Corvette of Rafael Gimaria on row 2, the red Ferrari, of course, car of Jimmy Bruni, and Manuel Lopez in the white Valorma course. Those are the drivers you would expect to be challenging for the lead into turn 1, as Pilet slows the field almost down to a crawl as they come down the start finish straight, getting ready for those red lights to flash green. Then we'll be racing. Here we go. And who's got the jump from the line as they power towards the first corner? It's a superb start from Federico there. He's jostling for position as they all look to try and find the advantage, but Pilet is sticking to his guns. He's got the inside line into the first chicane. So it's Patrick Pilet who leads in there, but Marco Holzer is going to fight it with him. Holzer's forced over the curbs and emerges though in the lead. Pilet, I think, should take the back. He does. Also going very strongly is Matteo Malicelli in the Aston Martins. Malicelli moves into second. Rafael Gimaria climbs up to third. Marco Holzer slips to fourth. Manuel Lopez is fifth, but we've got a challenge for the lead here as the Aston Martins all over the tail of the Porsche, heading into the second chicane. There's a little bit of debris being kicked up as it's a high-speed, high-cost traffic jam through the chicane. Jimmy Federico there rather gets out his elbows, pushes Manuel Lopez into the gravel, and that means Michael Brozanitsky is gaining ground as well as they all work through the first of the Lesmos onto the second one, and still Patrick Pilet is frustrating Matteo Malicelli here as the Aston Martin driver tries to move into the lead.
Yeah, a pretty sensible first lap, really, nothing going on too much. A bit weird to see Holzer lose out there, but I don't think he really had a choice other than to cut the chicane. Pilet absolutely smashed the curb and kind of forced his way in front, so it was a bit of an avoidance more than anything there.
Yeah, completely agree. And actually Holzer will be probably quite glad not to be part of this battle, because Patrick Pilet is determined to hold on to the lead, come what may here. All of the cars in the championship run on a control compound Dunlop tyre, and certainly there have been concerns this weekend about tyre wear, both from the British team and also the Villiers Aston Martin squad, so their drivers going to have to be mindful of tyre wear as this race progresses. But it's a good run for Matteo Malicelli as he closes up on Patrick Pilet as they power down towards the first chicane. Pilet, though, covers the inside line. He shows just how wide a Porsche can be when you want it to, but around the outside attempts to go Malicelli, and again Pilet covers his line very neatly into the second element of the chicane, so there's no way through there for him. It's Stefano Gattuso, by the way, in the black 77 Ferrari. He leads the GTS class as this leading group power through Curva Grande, and still is going on throughout the field. Juan Manuel Lopez has got Enrique Bernaldi and Alexander Salkanitzer on his tail as the race leader Patrick Pilet is having tried very defensively here to withstand the challenge from Matteo Malicelli and Raffaele Giammaria, all of which is fantastic news for Marco Holden, because he's not seen these cars disappearing away from him.
Yeah, I think it's helping him a little bit, but there is that they have gapped a little bit of space back to Monza, and he's going to have to pull his finger out a bit here because they are getting away. But I think it's only a matter of time before that Aston makes its move.
Well, Ramon Narek is certainly enjoying himself in the garage, isn't he? As his driving partner Patrick Pilet does all the hard work. They've already got a car to pick around. That's Martin Lanting in one of the AF Course Ferraris. He is successfully avoided, at least by all of the front runners, as they jink through Ascari and accelerate then along this back straight towards the Parabolica again. This is where you would think the Aston Martin may have the legs on the Porsche, but Patrick Pilet is showing it's got quite a turn of straight line pace here, and Raffaele Giammaria is staying with them in the Corvette. Giammaria lights a blaze as Federico Leo goes around the outside of Michael Rosnitsky and moves into fifth. Rosnitsky in sixth. He's got Stefano Gattuso there on his tail, the GTS class leader, in seventh. But again, Malicelli's got a superb run on Patrick Pilet, the lead of the race, as they head along the start and finish straight, and the field still running as continuous train. And this time, are we going to see a last moment lunge from Malicelli? No, we're not. He comes right up to the tail of the bumper of Patrick Pilet as Enrique Bernaldi gains the position on Alexander Talkanitzer. They're all pulled up behind Marco Mappelli in the Auto Orlando Sport Porsche. There's Mappelli. He lies second in the GTS class. He's got Juan Manuel Lopez on his tail, and Mappelli had plenty of adventures yesterday as the leaders once more go side by side. And Patrick Pilet, it's been a brilliant drive thus far, Duncan, because it is very, very tricky on so many long straights to keep these cars behind.
Yeah, it's quite plain to see that Aston's got a hell of a straight line speed behind it, but Pilet's positioning the car, not aggressively so, but in the correct place that the Aston just can't make its way past. So it'll be interesting to see what he does here. I think it's going to have to be an awful aggressive move to get past, but maybe he's being a little bit sensible at the moment. He's still got 45 minutes left of the race, so a long way to go.
Have a replay of dramas further back, and that is Massimo Mantovani, who, that's very unfortunate for Mario Cordoni, completely innocent in that, as Mantovani slews back across the track, makes contact with him, and hopefully that's not going to bring out the safety car, and that is a high-speed impact, unfortunately just avoiding the driver's door for Mario Cordoni there in the Umbra Racing Ferrari. So we've got yellow flags then. That's at the second chicane. Ramon Narek, thumbs up to camera. I think that thumbs up means could you please leave me alone now so I can follow the fortunes of my team, because Patrick Pilet is going to possibly be demoted here because Malicelli's got the run and Pilet says, yeah, through you go now. I've held you off for long enough, and he gives him plenty of racing room. Now, will Raffaele Giammaria try and take advantage and squeeze through? But then Malicelli outbrakes himself through the turn one chicane. He rejoins with a somewhat lengthened advantage and pulls away from Patrick Pilet. Pilet's got Giammaria right on his tail. They're coming through to this yellow flag zone there, where we've got the wreckage from the incident involving Mantovani and Cordoni. The tractor were recovering it. Here is a replay of the Aston Martin locking up. And again, as much as anything Malicelli does, that's the first time he's come into that first chicane without his speed being controlled by Patrick Pilet.
Yeah, so he's just lost his reference point, really. Could have been looking in the mirror a little bit there and just having to brake
that's exactly what he did. But Pilet's actually coming back to him through the corners. The Porsche has still got the pace in comparison to the Aston Martin. Marco Holzer has been demoted by Federico Leo, so it's now Leo in fourth in the A, of course. Ferrari, absolutely immaculate car, chasing down this leading trio, and really the battle to watch for is whether Raphael Giammaria is going to be able to pick his way past Patrick Pilet. He's not quite close enough this time around. Enrique Benaldi, meanwhile, in a bright yellow car, is trying to make that pass. Marco Lopez, who is still being frustrated up behind Marco Mapelli. So on they come then to complete the fourth lap of the race, and Giammaria's got the run on Patrick Pilet. He looks to draw alongside in the Corvette. He was just ahead as they came past that commentary position, but it's Pilet who's got the inside line for the chicane. But Giammaria brakes very, very late, and he makes the corner though. Nicely judged from Raphael Giammaria. And the consensus this weekend, Duncan, has been that the Corvette is probably the better of the all-round packages. It's got the straight line speed, it's just been a little bit kinder on its tyres than the Aston Martin. So we're intrigued to see how quickly Giammaria takes the fight to Malicelli.
Yeah, I mean, that was a really good overtaking maneuver, because what you don't realise watching it at home is that if he tightened that wheel up any more than he did, he would have locked up and potentially gone straight on. So trying to straighten out the first part of the chicane as much as possible. That's why you saw that, we all saw how late he braked, still managed to stop it. Yeah, the Corvette's really coming to its own at the moment.
Well, this is what the International GT Open is all about. We've got Aston Martin leading Corvette, leading Porsche, leading Ferrari at Monza in the sunshine. What more could you want? And it's Federico Leo who is the man on the move, because he's just set the fastest lap of the race and he's homing in on Patrick Pilet. Pilet in turn is still staying in touch with Malicelli and Giammaria. There's Marco Holzer, the championship leader, in fifth. Although Federico Leo and Jimmy Brinley, if they finish ahead of Marco Holzer and Nick Tandy, particularly if they finish substantially ahead, they should probably reclaim the championship lead. They're only 3 points back from them, and Leo is now thinking about the move on Pilet into the parabolic. He gives it an awful lot of thought, eventually thinks better of it. Marco Mapelli is still frustrating Manuel Lopez. The Orlando Sport mechanics who prepared Mapelli's car have barely had any sleep all weekend. Archie Hamilton went off quite heavily in Friday testing. Marco Mapelli then damaged the front of the car once more in the race yesterday. It's onto its third front spoiler of the weekend. And Mapelli is rewarding all their efforts with the feisty drivers. Leo draws alongside Patrick Pilet and moves across into third position. Gets the car stopped in time, does a block pass, then slithers wide. Pilet tries to draw alongside. The pair of them rub door handles as they accelerate towards Curva Grande. I think it's just Leo who's moved up into third. And Pilet, well, he's still contesting it with him. He's got the traction. That's the beauty of the Porsche. It does have that inherent mechanical grip. But Leo has sealed the deal by the time they arrive into the second of the chicanes. Federico Leo, well, yesterday, Duncan, he had a difficult time on the damp track on slick tyres. He's more than making up for it today.
Yeah, he looks more at home now. Yesterday was a tough race for everyone, but as we watched, nice slow-mo of the cars coming to the chicane. But yeah, Leo struggled a bit yesterday because it was tough to come straight out onto the track in slicks, and you had to really push and be confident to get any temperature into it, and he wasn't as confident as others, and as a consequence he just lost out a little bit.
Well, Patrick Pilet still stays with Federico Leo, and Leo slides the car. Pilet takes a big bite of curbs once more through Ascari. He has been spectacular all weekend, Patrick Pilet. Lights ablaze then from Federico Leo, but it's Pilet who carries the pace along towards the Parabolica. And is he going to be in a position to challenge? Not quite. He'll be hoping he can maybe just force that error from Federico Leo. Enrique Benaldi still comes in behind Manuel Lopez. Benaldi in the bright yellow car as they put the lap on Fulvio Calabio's Monte Carlo. Accelerating along then, 6 laps now reeled off. We're only 8 3/4 minutes away from the opening of the pit window. These 50-minute races, Duncan, the drivers have to drive every lap of their stint like it's a qualifying lap.
Exactly. I mean, all the kind of slightly shorter endurance races, if that makes sense. Every lap is like a qualifying lap, and there's none of this looking after the car business or looking after the tyres. It's get in, go as fast as you possibly can, get out, hand over to teammate, and he's going to do exactly the same. And it shows for a really good racing.
It's giving us some absolutely superb racing at the moment, because we've got still Malicelli from Gia Maria in the race overall. We've got the GTS Class League battle coming together. It's the Black Ferrari of Stefano Gattuso. He's got Marco Mappelli's Auto Orlando Sport Porsche homing on his tail. Mappelli being pushed along here by Juan Manuel Lopez and Enrique Benaldi, but Gattuso, last year's GTS champion, coming under a little bit of pressure from Mappelli, who, if nothing else this weekend, has been aggressive, and he's continuing that form through. And actually Gattuso is just beginning to lap a bit more quickly. The Marco Holzer is well ahead of him, so the Manthey Racing Porsche championship leading car, which sits in 5th, being caught by Gattuso and Mappelli, and they're bringing in the 3 Super GT Ferrari 458s with them for company of Juan Manuel Lopez, Enrique Benaldi and Alexander Stalkanitsa. Well, you said to watch for Klaus Hummel. I don't think you meant licks of flame from the rear of the car, quite, Duncan.
I've got a great picture of myself going through that corner with a big spitting flame like that. It's a pretty spectacular picture.
It's fairly safe to say that Klaus just adores his racing. He's a true gentleman driver in the very, very best meaning of the word. He's a quick driver as well. He hires good drivers like Adam Christodoulou to partner him. He really developed as a driver in recent years. As we've got more yellow flags over at turn 1. That's Klaus Hummel in the McLaren, who has gone off at turn 1, which suggests that lick of flame was maybe to precursor something a little bit more serious. So the McLaren then out of the race. It means that this 5-way squabble for 6th position couldn't switch places that time around through the first chicane. It gives Stefano Gattuso some momentary respite in his battle with Marco Mappelli, Juan Manuel Lopez and Enrique Benaldi. We have got another car that's actually halted at the entry to the pit lane as well. And we've got the team manager of car 78, which is the Mercedes SLS, Sandro Garofano, who has been summoned to race control. So it's all getting very, very dramatic. We're not yet 15 minutes into this race as Gia Maria turns up the heat. He's just set the fastest lap. He's got those headlights ablaze, and Rafael Gia Maria, who looks a little bit more like a PhD student than the racing driver, very scholarly looking, Rafael Gia Maria, but he is exuberant in the car. Spectacular to watch as he sits on the tail of Matteo Malicelli. I was talking to Matteo actually on Friday, and he was saying that they've really struggled for setup this weekend for Aston Martin, because when they've been running the ride height as low as they'd want to for maximum top speed, they've just been finding the vibration in the car too much. They've had to raise the ride height. It's made the ride more comfortable, but it's then had the consequent effect on tyre wear. So that's why maybe Malicelli's not pulling away too much. Marco Mappelli still in the white and blue Auto Orlando Porsche, defending from Juan Manuel Lopez, whilst at the same time trying to pick his way past Stefano Gattuso. Gattuso living dangerously out to the very edge of the track at Parabolica, powering through. Completes lap. It's going to be a bum fight into turn 1, and Mappelli looks to draw alongside Gattuso. Gattuso gives him racing room, and it's Marco Mappelli who moves into the lead of the GTS class. And that was a really nicely judged move from Mappelli, Duncan. He'd been setting up for several laps, picked his moment, got the run, and through he went. Yeah,
Quite a basic move. Used the full width of the circuit down the main straight here at Monza, but yeah, he's absolutely dropped him now, though. I mean, he's pulling away a fair old chunk, so maybe Gattuso's just gone a bit too heavy on those tyres in the first few laps.
We've got a problem in the pits. Is the second of the Corvettes, that's Diedrich Schitov's car, and the mechanics doing some work then around the rear left area. Looks as if they could have just been clearing some room on the wheel arch. Find out in due course what that issue was. In the meantime, though, the leaders setting ferocious pace. They're pulling away from Federico Leo, Trepile and Marco Holzer, although not by an enormous amount. And of course, these two cars didn't finish on the podium yesterday. They've got no additional time incurred for them in the pit lane, nor does Federico Leo in 3rd place. And they have, of course, Ferrari. He hands over to the incredibly rapid Jimmy Bruni. So we are going to be set for a grandstand finish to this race. The 3 leaders, they're all going to be in there for the minimum possible time in the pits. No penalty time for them. In fact, I tell a lie, because of course we had Gia Maria and Ramos on the podium yesterday in seconds, so rather 1st and 3rd have got no additional time in the pits, whereas the 2nd place car does have to spend an additional 10 seconds in the pits after drive from Miguel Ramos and Rafael Gia Maria yesterday. But even so, it sets us up perfectly for Alvaro Barber and Jimmy Bruni's stint. Barber, who takes over in the Aston Martin, Jimmy Bruni who will assume the controls of the of course Ferrari. And we're only 3 minutes away from the opening of the pit window, and Juan Manuel Lopez has got the run on Stefano Gattuso here. The Super GT versus the GTS Ferrari, but Gattuso has got the commitment on the brakes and maintains his position to the frustration of Juan Manuel Lopez and Enrique Bernaldi. Malicelli, you can see, has just notched up the fastest lap of the race. Well, he's not really pulling away here from Raffaele Giammaria. He's only 7/10 of a second clear, and it's 2.5 seconds back to Federico Leo. And we've got Marco Holzer, Marco Mappelli, and then this Gattuso and Lopez battle. Lopez rides the curbs. Enrique Bernaldi still staying in that fight. At the moment, unable to make progress. This is always the challenge, Duncan, in multi-mark racing. Where it's different marks, you're stronger and weaker on separate sections of the circuit. When they're essentially identical cars, it's very hard to find the difference.
Yeah, it's essentially a one-make series when it's like that. It's so hard to overtake, and that's what he's doing. He's just trying his best as always.
There is Miguel Ramos, who will be taking over in the second-placed Corvette. In a few moments' time, though, I suspect that Giammaria will probably go a little bit deeper into his stint. He's normally fractionally quicker than Miguel Ramos, whereas, as you can see, Federico Leo, Matteo Malicelli in pretty much at mid-race, if not maybe, as the pit window opens. So still no switch in this three-way Ferrari fight. It's enabling Marco Mappelli just to move clear of Stefano Gattuso in the battle for GTS honours. Mappelli hands over to Archie Hamilton. They finished off the podium yesterday, and so they have got no additional time in the pits. So a weekend that started badly, all things being equal, could end very successfully for them. Still the leaders through Curva Grande. Matteo Malicelli leads it. They're coming up to the tail of the Corvette, which has emerged from the pits. And then Raffaele Giammaria. And Giammaria, Duncan, he just seems very confident on the brakes. Every time they come to the braking zone, he closes up a couple of metres on the Aston Martin.
Yeah, I don't think the braking is necessarily the strongest point compared to the Corvette. And that could prove to be quite costly, but the Aston's got some straight line speed, so I think these boys are quite close at the moment. It's quite even. It'll be interesting to see how it all turns out. But I've been looking at Holzer's car. I think from that incident on the first lap where he had to go straight across the chicane, he's damaged his front splitter a bit. And it's not often you see the pace of Holzer, not the quickest Porsche out there, and he's just dropping back 3 or 4 tenths on Pile, and I think he's potentially got a bit of front splitter damage, which is just losing a little bit of downforce, and that's quite crucial around all the back section through Lesmos and Ascari.
It's a really good spot, Duncan, as the pit window is open. Yes, there we can see it quite clearly. It's just, isn't it, to the left of the screen, just a little bit of trim hanging down, and in a relatively short race such as this, 50 minutes, it's those tenths to second per lap which make the difference between a step on the rostrum or not. And into the pits, no surprise there, Federico Leo is the first driver into the pits. He will hand over to Jimmy Bruni, and Jimmy Bruni, we are in for real treat as Malicelli out, breaks himself at the front chicane and runs over the curbs. He resumes in the lead of the race. That's the second time he's done it, and I guess you'd say that he didn't gain an advantage because he was leading when they went into the chicane, and he leads when they come out. But Giammaria may have a slightly different interpretation. Here we see it again, snatching the brakes, and it goes back to the point you were making a couple of moments ago, Duncan, that Mr. Martin just doesn't seem very keen on the idea of stopping as well. Manuel Lopez has also come in, and he hands over to Andrea Monterni in the Vallorba course. Ferrari Monterni, of course, another ex-Formula 1 driver and a very, very quick pilot, and that's a smart move from the Vallorba course team because he was bottled up behind Stefano Gattuso, making progress. We'll hope to feed that car out into free air. So the Malicelli and Giammaria battle continues in third place. It is Patrick Pile. Fourth is Marco Holzer. But let's not forget, in the pits, it's an additional 10 seconds for Giammaria when he hands over to Miguel Ramos. That is going to be the one to watch, as is the one between the Aston Martin and Jimmy Bruni at the wheel of the of course, Ferrari. So coming through, this is to complete the 12th lap of the race shortly. They've got a the Parabolas to negotiate, and also the Corvette of Diedrich Schütthoff, which is running at the same pace as these leaders. He's not inclined to move aside, but this is proved to be a bit of a distraction venture for Matteo Malacelli. He was flashing his lights to him a couple of moments ago, and he'll be hoping the Corvette peels in this time. It doesn't, neither does Malacelli. So around they go once more, the leading Joe, and yes, again flashing the headlights, but on the straight the Corvette has got everything the Aston's got.
Yeah, it's a tough one. Unfortunately, Schütthoff's going to have to move out the way. You know, he's a back marker. He's going to be picking up the blue flag shortly, and if he does affect and interfere with the leading battle, yeah, look, blue flag's there. He's going to have to move out the way. Oh, he's going to get some serious slap wrists. Barber gets ready to hop in.
Alvaro Barber then poised, suited, booted with his hands device, waiting to take over the Villois Aston Martin. And now this is really hurting Malacelli as he is really being forced to run at the pace of the Corvette. Another blue flag is being waved, and well, this is good news for Giammaria and the other Corvette, you'd have to say, because he has closed right up off the tail of Malacelli to the point of having a look into Lesmo. And Raffaele Giammaria is really turning the wick up now as Matteo Malacelli gets increasingly frustrated. Behind the Corvette of Diedrich Schütthoff, as into the pit lane is Andrea Rizzoli. That's the pass over to Stefano Bizzarri in the GTS class into Ascari. Then it's the back-marking Corvette about to go a lap down, and then the two race leaders, Matteo Malacelli and Raffaele Giammaria, two of the Italian drivers performing in front of a very enthusiastic home crowd here at Monza. They accelerate along towards the Parabolica, and are we going to see the driver duck in to the pits this time around? We're approaching half-race distance. You wonder whether Villois might just say Corvette's not going to move aside, you may as well pit in, but no, all three of them continue for another lap.
I mean, it's very naughty from Schütthoff. I mean, he should be out the way. I know he's got the same kind of pace as these guys, but he's not in the lead battle, and it's quite clearly holding up the Aston and these guys, and it's making it interesting for us, but I'm pretty sure that Malacelli is going to want him there.
Yeah, Malacelli goes, or doesn't go by now. They're going to Curva Grande, and that is a little bit naughty from Diedrich Schütthoff. He moved across and covered the line from Matteo Malacelli, and Malacelli goes past him now. Can't see into the cockpit, but I suspect he's pointing out what those shiny silver things outside the car are, what they're supposed to be used for, because Malacelli, after 2 laps of being held up, gets through as Marco Holzer peels in to pass over to Nick Tandy in the Manthey Racing Porsche championship leading car. And now can Raffaele Giammaria stay with Matteo Malacelli, because the result of all of that has brought what was a gap of about a second down to less than half a second between the race leaders. So they head out of Lesmo, accelerate on towards Ascari. There's Patrick Pilet in third position, the IMSA Performance Matmut Porsche, and this has been a very solid stint from Patrick Pilet. They've really got that car hooked up this weekend, just riding the curves at Ascari is the race leader Matteo Malacelli, and the concentration required, Duncan, to lead under that sort of pressure is absolutely immense, and to be so precise lap after lap.
Yeah, I mean, it's all part of being a racing driver, and it's almost the hardest part is keeping that concentration for a long time. And this race isn't necessarily rugged, but if you consider that these guys are used to doing maybe some other races, some long distance races, like 24-hour stuff, then the concentration you need to be in a car for 3 hours at a time is quite sensational.
Seasonal debut for him in the GTF this weekend. He hands over to Beniamino Caccia, as still we have got Raffaele Giammaria up all over the tail of Matteo Malacelli. Just 23 minutes to go. We're only 3 3/4 minutes away from the end of the pit window. Navarro, Barber and Miguel Ramos will be poised and ready, waiting in the pits. They're on the tail of Philip Petter, who has already had his pit stop, by the way. And so, still in pursuit, Raffaele Giammaria of Matteo Malacelli, Orlando Sport. That is Matteo Beretta, who is about to clamber in. Marcello Puglisi walks off to the garage, one of the front-running So out at Lesmo, on towards Ascari once more. Such a quick section of circuit here, and a really narrow tunnel as well through the trees. Jim Rear not quite in a position to challenge Malicelli just at the moment, but I think Jim Rear has done the right thing here. He's not risked the car, but he's been staying in constant contact with Malicelli, almost daring him to make a mistake.
Yeah, he's quite clearly putting on a lot of pressure on him, hoping that he makes a mistake somewhere else other than the first chicane, where it's quite easy to recover.
Are we going to see into the pit lane this time? Yes, we do. So Matteo Malicelli peels in. Rafael Jim Rear thus assumes the lead of the race. Squad ready to receive their car. And now we'll get for the first time actually the true indication of just how quickly this Corvette can go. So to a halt. Here's Matteo Malicelli, absolutely hits his marks. The door is open almost before Malicelli comes to a stop. In hops the somewhat shorter Alvaro Barber, heads to the seat insert. Malicelli straps him in, and when you're doing these drive changes, Duncan, do you pass on any words of advice at this point?
It's a difficult one because it's purely driver preference. So my teammate all he needs doing is his radio plugged in, he'll do a seatbelt himself, whereas I can't actually look down at my seatbelts because my crash helmet is different shape to his, so I need a bit of a hand. But it's an art that you need practice at, and it can really make a difference. You know, if you've pushed for 20 laps out on the track to build up a 2-3 second gap, you can quite easily lose that in an instance in a pit stop. So if you can nail them and make them really slick, then it can help you out a lot.
So we're following Rafael Jim Rear around the track, waiting for his pit stop. In terms of the cars that have pitted, Andrea Montermini, who has come out ahead of Jimmy Bruni. So I wonder whether the AF Course team had a slight problem in their pit stop, because Jimmy Bruni is up to speed now. He's just set the fastest lap of the race. He is absolutely flying. We get a view there of Montermini coming down the start and finish straight with Bruni in hot pursuit. And after a report, Alvaro Barber emerged from the pits before the pair of them. So I think it's the Aston Martin that's still in command of the field here, as now Jim Rear comes into the pits. The last of the front runners to do so, with the exception of Patrick Pile, who also on this lap to pass over to Ramon. There comes Pile, and here is Alvaro Barber, who, from what we could see from our commentary position overlooking the pit lane here, I think has come out in the lead of the race. There go Ramos, signals Jim Rear in, who wheels to a halt. Again, hops out. Very slick pit stop, and this start has been together for a few years. You can see they've just got that understanding about, as you were saying, that's exactly what needs to be done at the pit stop to get it done as quickly as possible. Alvaro Barber, well, he is racing the car he can't see at the moment, which is the car in the pits of Miguel Ramos now. Barber accelerates out of Ascari. And where is he relative to Andrea Montermini and Jimmy Bruni? That's probably what the big question is. Just looking if we could get sight of either in the back of the shot. We couldn't, all of which would seem to suggest that Alvaro Barber is going to have a reasonably large kind of proceedings here. So over the start and finish line he comes now, and this should essentially put him in the lead of the race. It does, as out of the pits goes Miguel Ramos. So Barber goes through, he's the first man through. Ramos is about to duck out of the pits now as Bruni's caught Montermini, so we're going to have a real fight on the hands for second. Here's Miguel Ramos going to do it as Bruni's lined up Montermini for a move into turn one. Here they come, and they have passed Ramos, and Jimmy Bruni goes through into second position. So second place to Jimmy Bruni, fastest man on the track at the moment, not unsurprisingly. 18 minutes to go. And Bruni is 12 seconds back from Alvaro Barber. So that is the gap that we're going to have to watch for. First of all, though, they have got the Corvette of now Emanuele Moncini to negotiate. And let's hope Moncini is maybe a little bit more gentlemanly than his co-driver Diego. He was in no hurry to move aside as they went through the second chicane into Lesmo again. showing absolutely no inclination to move off the racing line, or indeed diminish his pace. They're not getting blue flags at this stage, but I just think the team might be on the radio saying these cars are a lap ahead of you, you're not racing them, give them a little bit of ground. But the Corvette's got such straight line speed that in terms of the run to Ascari, there's no way through there for Jimmy Bruni. And this is a real shame, because this is actually taking away from Bruni's opportunity to chase down Alvaro Barber and give us a real contest for victory in the 14th race of the 2012 International GT Open season. So the fight for second and third heads along the back straight onto the Parabolica, and now Bruni is finally, is he? No, he can't get past Moncini.
Try and stay as calm as possible, but it's not particularly good from the Corvette. It needs to get out of the way, and I'm hoping it's going to be right now. Yes, it is good.
Yes, it's fairly safe to say more blue flags greeting him than into turn one I've seen for quite some time, so that helps things out. So now we've completed the pit stops. This is the order. The race is being led by this man, Alvaro Barber, number 12 in the Villiers Racing Aston Martin. Second place is Jimmy Bruni. We were just following number 4, the AF Course Ferrari, the bright red car. Third is Villorba Course Ferrari, number 2, Andrea Montermini, who is still not getting past Emanuele Moncini. In fourth position is Miguel Ramos. In the fifth is Ramon Arak in the IMSA Performance Macklin Porsche, and sixth is Nick Tandy in the Manto Racing. They're only separated by half a second, so that's a battle that we'll hope to pick up, as still Moncini is frustrating Andrea Montermini here. Jimmy Bruni has been released, so the gap between Barber and Bruni was 11.5 seconds, but even with that delay, Duncan, Jimmy Bruni was a second quicker than Alvaro Barber last time around. The chase is on here, and Jimmy Bruni, well, he's got a reputation, and rightly so, as probably one of the finest GT drivers in the world, and certainly in a Ferrari he is without peer. As yes, Nick Tandy is going for the move on Ramon Arak, and Nick Tandy is going to go through into 5th position, and that's more handy points for the Manti Racing squad. The problem that they've got, though, is that Jimmy Bruni, who they're fighting with for the championship, is in second, and if things stay as they are, I think that will be sufficient to put Jimmy Bruni and Federico Leo up into the lead of the standings. 15 minutes to go then. The gap between Alvaro Barber and Jimmy Bruni, 11.1 seconds, and Bruni closed in by half a second on that last lap, which I don't think is going to be quite enough.
No, I was just looking there to see what that lap time was, because it was the first lap that has really got clear in front of the Corvette, and I was expecting to be quicker than that, and I thought we might have a race on our hands, but it was only just 4.5 tenths, so not as much as we thought.
Except to say, though, that we know that Bruni has got pace in his pocket. His best lap is a 1:48.5, which is 9 tenths faster than Alvaro Barber's best lap of a 1:49.3, although that was even set by Matteo Malicelli. So there is every opportunity here for Jimmy Bruni to do this, but again, tyres are going to be the next factor, because all the teams have been just a little bit concerned about the abrasiveness of the Monza surface. It really is a track that works the tyres very, very hard. They all run on the same Dunlop compound, but this weekend they've all been saying that over the course of the race, tyre management is going to be absolutely key. And so whilst Bruni is going to push hard, he's not going to do that at the risk, I think, of ruining these tyres, particularly as he knows that Alvaro Barber and Villiers Aston Martin have big concerns all weekend about the durability of their runs. So that, in real terms, is the gap between them. It's essentially 3/4 of the run from Ascari to the Parabolica. We'll find out at the end of this lap exactly what that means in terms of time. Around Parabolica accelerates along to complete his 19th lap of the race, and his target to overcome 10.3 seconds. That's a bit more like it for Jimmy Bruni. 7 tenths faster than Alvaro Barber. It's still, though, probably not going to be quite enough. He really needs a second and a half or thereabouts a lap to make this certain. But as he rides the curve, he's certainly asking plenty of questions of that car. He's bringing Andrea Montermini with him for company. The next gap that's going to be worth watching is the fight for 4th and 5th, because Nick Tandy is beginning to reel in Miguel Ramos in terms of the GTS class. But it's this man, Archie Hamilton, who leads it from Daniel Zampieri, and then Stefano Pizzari. So the Orlando Sport Porsche leads the Kissel Racing Ferrari, and then it's the Of course Ferrari that's third in the GTS classification. Archie will be anxious to repay the team who were up all night on Friday rebuilding the car after he went off at Scotty. Did a lot of damage to the car. He's actually very lucky to walk away from it, Archie. And he's been getting better and better all year. The problem he's got is that Daniel Zampieri, when he's in the mood, which is often, is astoundingly quick, and Zampieri is currently 1.5 seconds a lap quicker than Archie Hamilton. So that gap, the GTS class lead, is coming down. Duncan, it's 13 seconds between the pair of them, but the way that Zampieri's going, that could be whittled down fairly quickly.
Yeah, I mean, Zampieri's been on unbelievable form lately. He's been really quick all the time. If he carries on at that rate, it's going to be very close. Archie's pumping in some pretty good laps, so it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Got yellow flags being waved down at the first chicane. Not quite sure what the reason for that is. The gap, meanwhile, between the leaders dips to under 10 seconds, and it's another half second gained for Jimmy Bruni. And this is where the psychology just comes into play here. This is when the Vilois team are going to have to be really careful about what they say to Alvaro Barber on the radio, because if they say to him, Jimmy's catching you, then there's the risk that Barber will push too hard and unduly use his tyres. Likewise, they need to let him know that Bruni's coming and to manage his own pace. We've got a problem here for Stefano Bizzarri, and it's a puncher, a front right puncher for Bizzarri, and that has promoted then Matteo Beretta, the Orlando Sport Porsche, in the GTS class. He's about to go down, as well as Gianluca Di Lorenzo, as what's left of the tyre makes a bid for freedom. It means that Bizzarri is going to be left to negotiate the parabolica on the wheel rim. Does well actually to keep the car controlled. Hopefully he won't have done too much damage to the car either, as he heads into the pit lane. Does very, very well to get that stop to the pit lane speed limit of 60 kilometres an hour. As the leaders arrive into Ascari. Benjamin Acaccia has been caught by Jimmy Bruni at almost the worst point on the track for Bruni to catch him, because the Ascari is a section where Bruni could really gain some time on Alvaro Barber. Unfortunately, he was bottled up behind Acaccia, and Acaccia, I'm not sure if he's seen him. He hasn't. Bruni's having to go every which way to get around him. And he's now got the inside line for parabolica. He flashes the headlights. And Benjamin looks across, sees Jimmy Bruni. Bruni goes straight and turns the chase. I suspect that that's going to be time lost for Jimmy Bruni on this lap. Let's have a look then as Bruni runs over the line. Yes, 2/10 in favour of Alvaro Barber. Jimmy Bruni lost a lot more than that through Ascari and then along that back section. So we've got 10 minutes to go. It's Alvaro Barber, Vilois Racing, Aston Martin, who leads the way. Second place is number 4, the AF Course Ferrari of Jimmy Bruni. Third place is number 2, the Northern Course Ferrari. There he is, of Andrea Montermini. And leading the GTS class is this man, Archie Hamilton, in the Auto Orlando Sport Porsche, but he is being caught by Kessel Racing's Daniel Zampieri in the Ferrari, and then his Hamilton's team, that is in the second Auto Orlando Sport Porsches. Matteo Beretta is third in the GTS class. So it's now that is a battle of position between Benjamin Acaccia and Emanuele Moncini. In fact, no, it's not. Moncini is a further lap down. He's able to move past Benjamino without too many problems. And Bruni, through the first sector, has gained 10th of a second. We shouldn't have any trouble lapping Stefano Bizzarri here, because they both run Frey, of course. As you can see by the fact Bizzarri, if he moved any further offline, would be in the weeds. So that's no problem there for Bruni. And this is a good drive as well done from Andrea Montoni. Staying with Jimmy Bruni, and the pair of them are closing on that Aston Martin.
Yeah, I mean, Montemini's last lap was 4/10 quicker than Bruni, and I know he's got held up a little bit, didn't he, into here the last lap, but yeah, he's driving very well.
Round parabolic there, this half a second quicker. Still don't think it's going to be quite enough to give him victory here, but he needs to maintain this pace because, as you say, Andrea Montermini again fractionally quicker on that last lap. Montermini, and in the Vallorba course, Ferrari right on the tail of Jimmy Bruni, pushing him all the while. Domingo Ramos and Nick Tandy tussle. Well, that gap is actually staying fairly steady now, about 6 seconds between the pair of them. Which is why Nick and the Manthey Racing Porsche team, with the eye towards the championship, would really quite like Andrea Montermini to be able to pass Jimmy Bruni here. We've got 2 races to come at the end of this one. They're both in Barcelona the weekend of the 3rd and 4th, and you'll be able to watch the races live and in HD on our live web stream, www.live.gtopen.net, where we will see who's going to be crowned the 2012 International GT Open champions. Both championships going all the way to the wire. In terms of the battle between Arch Hamilton and Daniel Zampieri, that is looking much more realistic. Zampieri's brought that gap down by over 4 seconds in the past 2 laps. As the Ferraris contesting 2nd and 3rd head through a scurry. The cars look absolutely immaculate. And the Ferrari 458 has been such a success since being introduced a couple of seasons ago. It's as much as anything, it's an utterly beautiful car, and for the drivers it gives them everything they need in terms of the balance, in terms of the feedback.
Yeah, I've driven one myself, but I'm told that it's a lovely, like you say, balanced car to drive, and it is a really, really good-looking car. I mean, when it first came out, it was probably the most stunning Ferrari for a very long time, and they always say a beautiful car is a fast car, and it's definitely proving to be that case.
It really is. So the gap between the leaders, though, comes down quite significantly on that last lap, almost a second. And Alvaro Barber, he's not doing what Matteo Maldonado did in terms of snatching his brakes through that first chicane, but he needs to be mindful here. We're into the final 6 minutes of the race. And Bruni is closing in all the while on his tail. He's got Andrea Montermini having shotgun with him. Out of the second chicane they come on towards Lesmo, which is a sequence of corners. For me, Duncan, it just epitomises everything that's great about motor racing. And Monza's such a challenge because you've got the chicanes from necessity, but you've got corners like Lesmo's, which are tight but still very, very quick.
Yeah, I mean, if you drive anything around here with downforce, Lesmo corners are something else. Yeah, they're banked, so you can take a lot more speed than normal. And you then got an incredibly fast section afterwards. It's just an immense place to drive.
Certainly is. So accelerating out of Lesmo is Nick Tandy in the Manthey Racing Porsche. He's got Philip Petter looming up on his tail here, and this could be bad news for Nick Tandy because Philip has been a little bit frustrated all weekend with the setup of that Kessel Racing Ferrari. But he could be a bit of a spoiler here for Manthey Racing, who really need this 5th place for the championship fight to continue, if not quite in their favour, at least as evenly as possible, heading to Barcelona. At the moment, Tandy's got 5th. Petter, though, last time round was the best part of 2 seconds quicker than the Porsche, which would possibly suggest that Nick Tandy's tyres are beginning to feel a little bit tired. And also, again, you can see, Duncan, the damage to the front right of that car. They're losing one of the front headlights. And you picked up the splitter damage earlier on, and I think that whole front spoiler section is probably not as it should be. And knowing the way that Manthey prepare their cars, everything that's on that car has got a very specific purpose with regards to its overall performance.
Yeah, I mean, it's not going to be a nice balance in that car now. You know, on one side of the car, there's not as much downforce as the other, and it's definitely holding back Nick here. He's unfortunately not got a great pace compared to Petter behind him, and hopefully he can hold him off for the championship's sake anyway.
Philip Petter, who's been racing for many, many years, he's a wily campaigner, he knows what he needs to do. And yes, there you can really see in quite some detail the reconfiguration to the front of the Manthey Racing Porsche. Lovely shot into the cockpit of Philip Petter, just seesawing the wheel, making it look very, very easy, which of course it isn't. These guys are utterly on the limit in this battle for 5th position. Alvaro Barber's advantage over Jimmy Bruni, by the way, is still in excess of 8 seconds. Miguel Ramos is still not quite within touching distance of Nick Tandy, but he certainly can't afford to relax either as we begin to move into the latter stages of this race. So Nick Tandy is going to have to hold on for 2, at the very most 3 more laps. I think it is only going to be 2 laps, because into the first chicane then comes our race leader, Alvaro Barber. 2nd position is Jimmy Bruni. And Bruni's brought the gap down again by 6/10 of a second on that last lap. Runs right out to the gravel trap, and you saw there very clearly, Duncan, the illustration of how inch perfect these drivers have to be. Bruni was over the curb. He had the tyre rubbing against the gravel, but not quite going in.
Yeah, I mean, he's really pushing hard now. He's the only driver out there in the 48s, and if he carries on like that, I'm not sure there's enough time for him to catch Alvaro Barber, but it's certainly impressive to watch him drive this car, because it is on the ragged edge, and he's not leaving an inch to spare. I mean, look at that. You know what, 4 inches until he's on the AstroTurf. It's nice and really good to watch.
It's a privilege to watch, whereas Andrea Montermini is still pushing, but he's just giving a little bit more of a margin. I think he and Juan Manuel Lopez will quite happily say that 3rd position will do them nicely. The race leader, Alvaro Barber, heads through Ascari. He's just on the tail of Wim Almeida, the co-driver of Enrico Bernaldi. Valois watch on anxiously on the pit wall. Mater, though, very fair, gives ample room to Alvaro Barber. So he heads in to Parabolica for the penultimate time, and he and Valois looking well set for yet another victory in what is proving to be an excellent 2012 season for them. Into the last lap of the race goes Alvaro Barber. Everybody thought the Aston Martin might have its day here at Monza. It has, but maybe not in the way we thought. And is that a problem for Archie Hamilton? It is. He's got a puncture. Oh, what despair for Archie Hamilton and the Auto Orlando Sport team. The car once more in the lead of the GTS class, suffering a problem. It's a puncture to the front left wheel, and so Hamilton is going to be passed by Daniel Zampieri, who will give Zampieri and Michael Dalla Stella another very strong result in the GTS Championship. Into the chicane for the final time, Alvaro Barber. And this has been just what the team needed from Barber, Duncan. He's been smooth, he's been precise, and he's allowed Bruni to come to him, but not by much.
Yeah, he's done exactly what he needed to do. I'm sure there's a few tenths left in him. He's just, you know, probably been on the radio a bit, asking how's the gap doing, and just looking after the car, looking after the tyres. And yeah, you know, last lap now he's just bringing it home. But going back to Archie, it's such a shame. He was having a really solid stint. You know, he was improving every lap. He was, yeah, really looking like he was going to bring that car home in P1, and it's really gutting for him. But hopefully they'll get another chance at the next one.
Yeah, I've been very impressed by Archie this year. He's really matured as a driver and come a long way. Here's the fight then for 5th, and Philip Petter is all over the tail of Nick Tandy. They've got half a lap to go as they work through Lesmo and accelerate towards the Ascari. They've got Benjamin Akacia as well, who is just up ahead of them, as into the Parabolica then for the final time. It's going to be delight for Valois Racing. The crowd are roaring, and Alvaro Barber and Matteo Malicelli claim victory in the 14th round in the International GT Open here at Monza. It's a superb second place for Jimmy Bruni and Federico Leo, with 3rd going to the Lord, of course, Ferrari of Andrea Montermini and Juan Manuel Lopez. But what about 5th? And Tandy's busy ducking and weaving, trying everything. Keep Philip Petter behind him, and Petter loses it and goes off into the gravel at the Parabolica, and he just snatched a break. Around he goes, rotates out of 6th position. So 4th has been claimed by Miguel Ramos and Rafael Giamria. Nick Tandy and Marco Holzer take 5th in the Manthey Racing Porsche, and that will promote up into 6th the pole position car, yesterday's race winner, Ramon Narak and Patrick Pile. The dust settles at Parabolica, and the sister Kessel Racing car of Philip Petter, Daniel Zampieri, works through the last turn. He and Michael Dalla Stella are going to claim victory in the GTS class and 8th in the race overall. Over the line he comes.
I think we also have Archie carrying on with that flat tyre. So whether he can hold on to second, we'll wait and see.
It's going to be a big ask for him. I suspect not. He had 10 seconds over Matteo Beretta at the start of the lap, and then Gianluca Di Lorenzo as well in the Mercedes was closing in, waiting for all of those cars to take the flag, and that will then give us the remainder of our podium classification. I think the only thing that could help Archie here, though, Duncan, is with that yellow flag zone all the way through Parabolica. Let's have another look at it then. Nick Tandy braking desperately late, as did Philip Petter. What do you make of that? And Archie Hamilton has held on for second in the GTS class from Di Lorenzo and Beretta. A livid Philip Petter watches trackside, and
that was a strange one. I mean, I think he thought that Nick was going to come across on him more, and just as he was on the optimum braking, it's just snapped the car around.
So let's take a look at the final classification after what has been another very, very dramatic race. It's the win for Alvaro Barber and Matteo Malicelli, Veloce Racing Aston Martin, AF Course Ferrari, Federico Leo and Jimmy Bruni in second, Andrea Monterni and Juan Manuel Lopez for Scuderia Villorba Course. Their Ferrari takes third in the GTS class. Zampieri and Dalla Stella win it. Mapelli and Hamilton, I suspect, after a fine spoiling drive from Matteo Beretta in the second the Autolanda Porsches, get second. So Marco Mapelli, Archie Hamilton, amazingly, Hamilton limping that car around for 3 laps on its rims, with then Gianluca Di Lorenzi and Alessandro Garofano getting third in the class in the Mercedes SLS. Again, a race that was very low on casualties, although fortunately for Mario Cordoni, he was an early retirement after being collected by Massimo Mantovani at the chicane. The fastest lap went to Jimmy Bruni, a 1 minute 48.5. He was the only driver in the field to dip into 1 minute 48. So in the Drivers' Championship, 2 races to go, and Federico Leo and Jimmy Bruni lead it by 7 points from Marco Holzer and Nick Tandy. With Alvaro Barber and Matteo Malicelli, they could still win the title, but they are a little bit too far back, I think, and they would have to rely on bad luck for the Ferrari or the Porsche. Juan Manuel Lopez and Andrea Monterni, they 4th in standing with Rafael Giamria and Miguel Ramos in 5th, Pile Narak 6th, and then 7th overall, Michael Dalla Stella and Daniel Zampieri. Is going to be quite some finale to the year at Barcelona on the 3rd and 4th of November. As I say, you'll be able to watch the races live in HD on our live web stream, www.live.gtopen.net. So the cars heading into Parc Fermé, and Duncan, it's just been a super weekend of GT racing. Yesterday we had the changeable conditions, today the sunshine, but still the drama.
Yeah, there's been drama in both races. They, pretty kind of challenging conditions yesterday, with having to kind of make a call on whether to go to slicks or not and what time to do that. Today had slightly different challenges, with the fact that different cars were in different places and positions, and yeah, they've all done a brilliant job. It was very, very entertaining to watch, and obviously the championship's wide open.
It really is. Alvaro Barber and Matteo Malicelli confer in Parc Fermé. Imagine that Archie Hamilton will be a picture of delight after this race, as we get to enjoy some beautiful slow motion shots of the race winning car. That's Alvaro Barber picking his way through the chicane en route to the checker flag. I'm sure that Barber will be all smiles once he unclips his helmet. So incredibly dramatic end to the race as well. It leaves us perfectly poised for the championship, as here comes Archie Hamilton now, limping around on those rims. It was, though, Daniel Zampieri and Michael Dalla Stella who won the GTS class, and we talked about Zampieri briefly during the race, but for me, he is going to be one of those drivers in the years to come we're going to be talking about, I think, in the same bracket as Jimmy Bruni, as just one of the very best of the best in GT racing.
Well, he's certainly proving himself as a person that can really push the Ferrari, and yeah, I don't see why he won't be on Ferrari's books for a very, very long time.
So let's take a look then at the highlights of an action-packed race. And from the start, it was Patrick Pilet who had the early advantage, though Marco Holzer challenged him into the first chicane. Holzer took a trip across the curbs, damaged the front splitter on the Manthey Racing Porsche and was demoted to third. This was a nasty incident. Massimo Mantovani collecting Mario Cordoni. Both of them lucky to get away with that, although the car's going to require significant remedial attention before Barcelona. Matteo Malicelli moved ahead of Patrick Pilet, promptly outbraked himself but maintained the lead. Pilet put out a stout defensive drive, as did Stefano Gattuso, as he doggedly held on to the lead of the GTS class for almost the halfway point of the race before Marco Mappelli pulled a gutsy move in the slipstream to move past him as they headed along the start and finish straight into the first of the chicanes. The drama's certainly not yet done for the Auto Orlando Sport Porsche. The mid-race pit stops saw the race leader Malicelli in and handing over to Alvaro Barber as they emerged from the pits. It was the Aston Martin that led, with Jimmy Bruni in the red AF Course Ferrari hot pursuit, followed by Andrea Montermini. Last to drive into the pits was Rafael Giambri, who had a brief tenure in the lead of the race before he handed over to Miguel Ramos. The fight for fifth was ferocious between Nick Tandy and Philip Petter, rubbing body panels and wheels around the track as Tandy did everything he could to hold on to that fifth position for the Manthey Racing Porsche and the advantage in the championship. As it was, though, it was victory for Alvaro Barber and Matteo Malicelli. Second went to Jimmy Bruni and Federico Leo. That gave them lead the championship, although Tandy held on to fifth after Philip Petter spun into the Parabolica, the very final corner of the race, as he was continuing his efforts to move ahead of Tandy. He couldn't quite do it. So victory for Barber and Malicelli, second place for Jimmy Bruni and Federico Leo, and third to Juan Manuel Lopez and Andrea Montermini. Big change, big cheer on the podium here for the Villois Aston Martin squad. A home victory for the team. A lot of people here at Monza supporting them, and smiles for Malicelli and Alvaro Barber on the rostrum, together with the representative from the team. Jubilant podium at Monza after a fine weekend of racing from the International GT Open. And as ever, the GT Open, Duncan, showing that multi-mark GT racing, there are few finer spectacles in motorsport.
Yeah, there's just so many aspects to it that make it exciting. And with the fact that you get the penalties from the previous podiums in this, add something else to it as well. You've got XF1 drivers and some seriously talented up-and-coming drivers up against the gentleman guys, and it's yeah, really good championship, and be interesting to see who comes out on top at the end of it.
Well, it's going to be a spectacular title fight at Barcelona in a few weeks' time. So now the hard work of the weekend is done. It's time to celebrate on the rostrum with champagne, and Andrea Montermini, as ever, is the first off the mark. That's the sign of a driver with 30 years of experience in the sport. He knows how to be quick with the champagne cork.
Yeah, get in there first before you get totally caned by everyone else.
Absolutely, there's nothing quite as unpleasant, I think, as the smell of a champagne-soaked race suit on a Monday morning.
I don't know, it's a pretty good one. It means you've had a good weekend.
It's a very good point, Duncan. Drivers celebrate on the rostrum for the overall race podium. Chance again just to savour these cars in action around this legendary track. And Jimmy Bruni, well, that was some stint as ever from Bruni. Took every risk on the curbs, didn't leave an inch in terms of the margin with the track limits, but it still wasn't quite enough to overhaul this car, the Villois Aston Martin of Alvaro Barber and Matteo Malicelli. Well, the next celebration on the podium is going to be for the GTS class, which was equally keenly contested. Eventually, Daniel Zampieri and Michael Dalla Stella took the others. But what I'm looking forward to seeing here is Archie Hamilton's face, having brought that car home in second. In third, we had Matteo Beretta, and well, in third we had Gianluca Di Lorenzo and Alessandro Garofano. In second, it was Archie Hamilton and Marco Pelli, and then the winner was this car, Daniel Zampieri and Michael Dalla Stella, the Kessel Racing Ferrari. Archie Hamilton driving those last few laps of the race on the wheel rim. Quite an achievement for Archie to do that. Although the drivers, again, so Gianluca Di Lorenzo and Alessandro Garofano, I think maybe heading to the wrong step on the rostrum there. They've come out and promptly promoted themselves to second. There's Archie. Don't think he can quite believe that, can he? He is all smiles.
He needs to work out that he needs to be on the other side of the podium, doesn't he?
He does. He's not that short, is Archie, so... And then Daniel Zampieri and Michael Dalla Stella are getting very accustomed to their place on the top step of the rostrum. And so what was a disappointing last lap for Kessel Racing with the retirement of Philip Petter, it's a reason for celebration for Zampieri and Dalla Stella. Again, Kessel Racing, so many guests and sponsors here this weekend, and this is exactly what they'll have wanted to see, the cars on the podium. I think Archie's so delighted just to have got that car to the podium. He doesn't actually mind that he's on the third step, does he?
No, I think, believe it or not, it's actually a little bit hard to see. I have made the mistake myself, is that you get up there and you're excited, you just want to turn around and say, you know, wave to the crowd, and it's easy mistake to make. And
a nice problem to have as well, I'd suggest. Well, that just about brings us to the end of what has been an absolutely fantastic weekend's racing here at Monza for the International GT Open. The championship concludes on the 3rd and 4th of November at Barcelona. We'll have all the action live in HD, www.live.gtopen.net. Until then, from Duncan Tappy and myself, Ben Evans, we will look forward to seeing you at Barcelona in a few weeks' time. Thank you. What time do we go for F2?